First, let's start with this case. I'm a 16-year-old Filipina, and I recently got into an argument with my classmate's mom. Let's call him G, because I didn't choose him as my partner for our upcoming prom. The situation escalated quickly, and now I'm wondering if I was in the wrong. Last week, our class finalized prom partners because we'll soon begin practicing the choreography for the graded dance performance during prom. For context, our school incorporates a traditional dance into prom, which is part of our physical education grade. Since there aren't enough girls in our grade to pair with all the boys, some younger students will also join to even out the numbers. I didn't go around announcing that I already had a partner, my boyfriend of 2 years, 17 meme, because I assumed it was obvious. We've been together for a while, and we were also partners at last year's prom. However, during the partner pairing process, our teacher assumed I was still free and asked if I'd be willing to partner with G. I politely declined, explaining that I already had a partner. G didn't say anything about my refusal, so I assumed it wasn't an issue. I figured the teacher would ask one of the girls from the lower grade to partner with him instead. The next day, my advisor told me a parent wanted to talk to me and sent me to the guidance room. To my surprise, G's mom was there, and she immediately began complaining about how I had refused to go to prom with her son. She said I should feel honored to be paired with him. I was shocked and confused because I had politely declined the teacher's request and explained my situation. I hadn't been rude to G at all. Then, in the heat of the moment, I admit I was blunt. I told her that even if I didn't have a partner, I still wouldn't have chosen her son. I also suggested that she reflect on her son's behavior before blaming me. For context, G is loud, egoistic, and often disrupts class. During previous dance activities, he barely participated and often ran off to play with friends, leaving his partners to handle the work alone. I didn't want to risk that for a graded performance. The room went silent after my comment, and the teacher scolded me for being disrespectful to G's mom. However, the teacher also acknowledged that I hadn't done anything wrong beyond my choice of words. I apologized as requested and was allowed to leave while the teacher handled the rest. I understand why my comment might have been seen as rude, but I feel like I was pushed to my limit. It's frustrating that G's mom would confront me over something I had every right to decide for myself. Edit for context. I live in the Philippines, and our prom setup may differ from what others are familiar with. The graded portion of prom involves a choreographed traditional dance. This performance is part of our PE grade and happens only once during the first segment of prom. The rest of the prom is for fun, but the dance itself is important academically. I didn't publicly announce my partner because I thought it was obvious I'd go with my boyfriend of 2 years, especially since we were partners at last year's prom. I've informed my parents about the situation, and they've spoken to the teachers. Was I wrong for refusing to partner with G and for being blunt with his mom when she confronted me? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You've already got a partner. Just my own curiosity. What kind of prom gets graded? I thought it was supposed to be a fun social activity. Edited to add. Very creepy that a parent was allowed to speak to an unrelated minor. Second edit. It would be quite reasonable for your parents to get enraged that the school thought this was okay. I know I am quite angry on your behalf. It's really disturbing that a parent was allowed to speak to another child. If I were you, I would ask my parent to raise it as an issue with the head teacher and ask for an apology. You're not in the wrong. You can take anyone you want or no one to prom. If he had wanted to actually ask you to prom, he had plenty of time. Clearly he did not, and he's got no right to expect you to come without discussion. Is there any reason why the mom is so upset? Any reason why this boy has no social skills? You're not in the wrong. Your teacher has handled things badly from start to finish. Your teacher should never have put you in that position with the mother. You or your parents should kick up murder with management/administration. Next up, I work full-time and recently started taking evening classes to finish my degree. My schedule is incredibly packed, and I depend on my evenings to study or attend classes. My sister Emily has a 4-year-old daughter, Lila. I adore my niece and have babysat her many times when Emily asks in advance. However, last week, Emily called me about an hour before my class to ask if I could watch Lila for a few hours. She said both she and her husband had work emergencies. I told her I had an important class that evening, which included a review session for an upcoming exam. I apologized and explained that I couldn't miss it, so she would need to figure something else out. Emily ended up calling our mom, who was able to go over and watch Lila. Now, Emily is upset with me and says I was selfish for not helping her when she really needed it. She said she wouldn't have asked unless it was a real emergency. My mom also mentioned that I could have made it work since Emily has a lot on her plate with her job and being a mom. I feel bad for saying no because I know she was in a tough spot, but I also feel like I had a valid reason to prioritize my class. Am I wrong for sticking to my plans instead of helping her during her emergency? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You had plans already. You have your own life that doesn't stop just because Emily needs a last-minute sitter. Besides, she obviously had at least one other person she could ask. Also, she and her husband both had work emergencies at the same time. Do they work together or something? And how big of a work emergency are we talking? Because I can understand dropping everything if a loved one was being rushed to the hospital or something. But if it's a work emergency like a client will pull out of the deal unless you meet with them ASAP, then no, I'm not skipping a class for that. You're not in the wrong. Know who else has a lot on their plate? You. You have a lot. You are working full-time and taking classes to boot. This is finals time. You have to prioritize staying on top of work, studying, and your own health so you can get through the next few weeks. You're not in the wrong. Give me a break. So she decided to have a child, and now anyone who doesn't drop their own life to help her is a bad person? You know what? You want to have a child. Make sure you can manage that in your life, and you can afford to be out of work to care for them, or afford daycare. The end. Nobody else is responsible for your child. Next up, my wife, a 41-year-old female, and I, a 42-year-old male, have been married for 3 years. She has many great qualities, but one thing we frequently clash over is her love for gardening, or more accurately, her idea of gardening. She calls herself a gardening enthusiast, but in reality, she's terrible at it. Her approach to plants is what I imagine Saddam Hussein's would be if he ever ran a nursery. She's disorganized and, let's be honest, pretty lazy about the whole thing. Despite claiming to love her plants, she rarely puts in the 5 to 10 minutes a day needed to keep them alive. As a result, they usually meet an untimely death from sheer neglect. Her argument is that gardening makes her happy, and it doesn't really affect me, so I shouldn't care. My argument is that claiming to love plants while letting them suffer is borderline psychopathic. How can she enjoy gardening when she refuses to put in even the minimal effort required? To me, it's a strange and morally confusing hobby. To keep the peace, we've come to a compromise. I ignore her plant-related war crimes as long as I don't have to be involved. She happily continues her reign of botanical terror in the backyard. Now, she's going on vacation for 3 weeks and wants me to water her plants while she's away. Here's where the problem lies. Watering the plants is an easy task. Anyone could do it. But I have a moral objection. I don't want to participate in this cycle of neglect. To me, it feels like giving these poor plants false hope, only for them to face the same neglect once she gets back. My wife says I'm being overdramatic, fair, but I don't think I'm wrong. She insists that since it's such a simple task, I should just do it. We've decided to leave it up to a neutral third party, Reddit, and I'll abide by the crowd's decision. Wow, this blew up more than I expected. The consensus seems to be that I'm the idiot, or that I'm a monster who never loved my wife and deserves to die alone. I've caved and agreed to take care of the plants. I'm hoping that, like a good children's movie, this will turn into a heartwarming story where I bond with a row of cherry tomatoes and learn a valuable lesson. My wife, who's been reading this thread, is mortified at being called a registered plant abuser and promises to do better. She's also cackling nonstop because it turns out people like her a lot more than they like me. Thanks for the perspective, everyone. I gave in hours after posting this, but my wife won't let it go. She keeps quoting the most brutal comments and cackling. She's a cackler. I've done the math and realized I won't win another argument until 2057. Please have mercy. I will water the plants. Let's start judging. You're in the wrong. All these people claiming this is so funny must also dislike their partners, because that's all I get from this. You think she's lazy. You don't agree with something that has all to do with you in the most dramatic way. It costs you minutes, if that, to do one small nice thing, which very likely could put a stop to the thing you hate, but that would make her happy, and yet this is the stand you want to make. Let us know how that works out for you. Seriously. I'm a gardener, and nearly all of us killed a load of plants in our early days, and many of us still do. It's not that deep, but what is messed up is this ridiculous stance of being cruel to your partner for no reason. I hope you don't need her help in the future. You're in the wrong. How much time does it honestly take? If this is the worst you two have to argue about, to the point where you need to ask Reddit, you must get along well. Does your wife happen to have ADHD? Not saying it as an excuse, but maybe a reason that makes things a little harder than it would be for the average person. Hey man, my wife started raspberry bushes in the backyard. I told her, do whatever you want, but I don't want to be involved with maintenance. I already take care of our idiot cats, and we have a kid, and the nature of my job means I have the flexibility to do most of housework. So, I didn't want anything added to my plate. You know what I do in the summer when she goes on work trips? Water the dang plants. Because she asked me to. I don't touch them when she's here, but if she shoots me a text, hey, do you mind spraying the bushes? I do it. I'm gonna call you AmITheA, because it is stupid that your wife won't water them when she's here but wants you to water them now. But they're plants, my guy. Just water them for you, wife. Next up, I am a 28-year-old female, and I've been dating my boyfriend, Jake, a 30-year-old male, for about 2 years. We live together, and things have been mostly great, though we've been experiencing a bit of tension lately. This past weekend, things came to a head. I have a best friend, Ella, 29, whom I've known since childhood. We're really close, and for months, we'd been planning a road trip to a nearby beach town. Ella and I love going on adventures, and we were both really excited about this getaway. The problem started when Jake's mom planned a big family dinner and asked him to help with the preparations. These family dinners are a big deal for his family and happen about twice a year, with lots of extended relatives attending. Jake mentioned it to me a few days before the trip and asked if I could help out with the preparations. I explained that I already had this trip with Ella planned and didn't want to cancel. At first, Jake seemed fine with it, but as the day got closer, he started getting more upset. He reminded me several times that the dinner was important and that his family was counting on both of us to be there. He asked me to reconsider the trip and prioritize the dinner instead. While I understood that the dinner mattered to him, I didn't feel like I should have to cancel my plans, especially since Ella and I had been looking forward to this trip for weeks. I told Jake I wasn't backing out, and he was clearly annoyed but didn't press further. The morning of the trip, Jake gave me the silent treatment. When I tried to talk to him, he said he was disappointed and that it was selfish of me to go when I knew how much this dinner meant to him. Despite his reaction, I went on the trip with Ella, and we had a great time. When I got back, Jake was distant and made a few comments about how I chose a trip over his family. He said I should have been more understanding and prioritized him, especially when it involved his family. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I don't think I should have to give up my plans with my best friend for a family event I didn't agree to attend. On the other hand, I understand that family events can be important, and maybe I could have been more flexible. Was I wrong for going on my trip with Ella instead of helping Jake with his family dinner? For context, Ella and I had been discussing the trip for months, but we finalized everything about a week before Jake told me about the dinner. I realize now spontaneous wasn't the right word to describe the trip. Jake's family holds these dinners twice a year as a way for the extended family to reconnect. Let's start judging. I wonder why Jake deemed the event he wanted to attend more important than the event you wanted to attend. Jake's response to you not acquiescing to his reminders/annoyance is worrisome from a 30-year-old man you seem to be in a serious relationship with. The silent treatment? Being distant? Making comments to try to make you feel guilty? Take a good look at how Jake handles other disappointments or situations where he doesn't get his way or can't talk you into getting his way. You're not in the wrong. A quick reframe. You didn't choose a trip over Jake's family. Jake asked you to choose his family over you, your hopes and desires, and your childhood friendship. And you stood up for yourself and those things and said no. Good job, I'm proud of you. This would have been different if he asked you about the dinner first. If you already committed to attend, but you had plans that you were excited about and looking forward to, and he tried to coerce you into prioritizing him and his needs over your own, and now is trying to get you to feel bad so you never do it again. A healthy partner would have respected your no the first time with none of the punishing you nonsense when you didn't give in. It's totally okay if Jake was disappointed when you first said no. But this wasn't news to him, and the fact that he continued to try to guilt and manipulate you into changing your mind is weird behavior. You're not in the wrong. You're not in the wrong. Seems that either his mother picked a date without consulting people and just expects everyone to cancel their plans to work around her, or she did talk to Jake and he didn't bother talking to you. Either way, I honestly think that behavior is rude. If she issues invitations like a summons, she has to learn that she doesn't have that power. And if Jake couldn't be bothered checking with you, that means sometimes you won't be there.